Do all Americans get kicked out of their house once they turn 18? 根据我个人的经验，我觉得是情况而定。So I left home when I was 18, and I feel like a lot of people think all Americans do this, but it's really not like that. Because there's a stereotype of Americans being kicked out once they turn 18, I feel like a lot of people can misunderstand and think that Americans are so cold or they don't value family because how can you kick their kids out when they're 18? That's so young. But in reality, it's usually because the kids want to go do their own thing or they want to be independent, or most likely it's because they want to go to college. I come from a very small town. There's only 3,000 people. And that means there's no college around, so if I wanted to go to college, I had to move out and live on my own. It was always my dream to go to college, so I couldn't just give that up, and I decided to move out when I was 18. And my parents were actually very reluctant and hesitant, and they tried to convince me to stay home, but eventually they let me make my own decision. 在我离开家之后呢，我的父母并不给我钱，也不会帮我付房租，也从来没替我付学费，并没有给我任何的帮助。On Christmas, they might give me like $100 bill or something, but that's really it. And when people hear this, they might think like, oh my god, your parents seem so harsh, like they don't help you at all. But it's really just because they didn't have anything extra to give. And I totally knew this when I moved out, and I knew that I would have to support myself. Actually, when I first got to college, I found that a lot of my classmates had their parents paying for everything. Their parents would pay for their rent, they would pay for groceries, and sometimes just give them a little extra money for having fun. I'm gonna be honest, at that time I was totally bitter and jealous of them. Like, oh my god, you guys don't have to balance work and school. You can just totally focus on your studies. Why can't I be like that? But I think I was just an extreme case of a student from a poor family, when in reality, a lot of Americans would love to financially support their kids as long as they're able to do so. Actually, when parents drop off their kids at college for the first time, you can see a lot of these families are very upset. They're crying and hugging each other and saying goodbye. So it's not really true that these kids are being kicked out. It's just that they have their own things that they want to do. And some of these parents actually secretly hope that their kids will stay home a lot longer. And if they decide to go to college, the parents will miss them very much. I even had an old roommate who would complain that her parents were too nice and too considerate, because besides paying for everything, they would also send her these really thoughtful packages and messages to our apartment. And I guess that was really too much for her. That was too annoying for her, which I really thought was crazy. Like, I was really jealous of her. But I just have to remember that everybody has different experiences in life, I guess. Then after college, these days a lot of students will move back with their families as a way to save money. But personally for me, I didn't do that. I got really used to like the freedom and independence that I had after moving out. It was honestly really nice to do whatever I wanted to do, and I didn't have to ask my parents' permission to leave the house, and I could stay up as late as I wanted. So even after I graduated, I decided not to move back home. But my parents always made it very clear that I was welcome back home and I could move back home. But I really think that would have driven me totally crazy. So while my situation might sound like the stereotypical American experience, it's really not. For example, I have two younger brothers. They're 19 and 20, and they still live at my parents' house. And I also have some cousins, they're like 25 or 22, and they still live with their parents as well. So it's not really this thing that Americans all get kicked out when they're 18, and it really just depends on the individual's circumstances. 所以对我来说，我个人并不后悔18岁就搬出去住。我觉得读大学是我能为自己做的最好的事情。但我也觉得 if you can stay at home and go to school or go to work, it's also a really smart move. A lot of American parents will encourage their kids to do this so that they're a little bit more successful and they don't have to struggle as much. But overall, I just think that the idea that American parents will kick out their kids once they turn 18 is just a really weird stereotype. And in reality, a lot of Americans love living with family, and everything really just depends on individual circumstance. I'm also really curious to know what you guys think of this, and if you prefer living with family or living alone, or what age do you think is normal to move out? So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.